This is the midterm video project for the class cit17 Cybersecurity Essentials at Mission College in San Jose, California. Instructor being Mickey Pandit, and this is created by Tom Gibson, one of the students in the class. And on with the show.
Hello, this is Tom Gibson. I am part of the cit17 Cybersecurity class. This is a video project that has been asked for us to do relative to our midterm 1. I am doing a portion of the NetLab Security Plus Lab Series, Lab 1. This has to do with network devices and technologies, capturing network traffic, and of which the portion I will be doing is the wireshark involving FTP and sftp traffic. As you can see here, I've highlighted what part of the content section deals with wireshark. In this case, it'll be capturing FTP traffic and SFTP traffic, so we can show the difference between plain text and non-plain text type traffic flows. This shows the lab topology for this particular lab assignment. It turns out that in this particular situation, we'll be using the Security Onion system shown here, the development system shown here, and then the Ubuntu system shown here for the wireshark portion of this lab. It shows the lab settings relative to the different systems, their IP addresses, the accounts that will be used for login, and the different passwords. This is the preset lab setup. This is basically the systems that you'll be using and their logins. Go ahead and get logged in. This will save you time as you're going through the instructions, and it'll help get everything set up ahead of time. Okay, that's it.
I'm now at the point where I am going to open a terminal window on the Security Onion system. I am now going to make sure by doing an ifconfig-a that all of the available interfaces are up and running, which at this point they are based on the up inside of each of the config pieces. Being that's the case, I'm now going to execute wireshark to now initiate that program. And now we have that. Okay, continue with the lab. I now do capture on interfaces. The next step at this point would then be to select which particular network device, in this case ETH1, I start doing a capture for. And it now starts. Now, at this point, I need to go to the development PC, open up a terminal, which at this point already has been done for me, and then type in proftpd to initiate the FTP server, and that begins. I don't think there is an error message. I think it's just running at this point. I wanted to add that there was a delay in the proftpd actually running. Apparently it takes a while to get started. So one of the things you will see eventually, and it might take it a good minute or two for it to come up, is this particular message here about an IPv6 error relative to a reference. But please just ignore that. That's what's in the lab notes, so you shouldn't have to sweat that. Okay, per the lab, we now would switch back to the Ubuntu system, which is this client one now that it shows up as. We will then bring up a terminal. Okay, and in this terminal window, we will now initiate an FTP sequence such. All right, when it comes up, it will, with a prompt. By the way, the pods that we're using, the virtual machine pods that we're using, as I call them, they tend to run a little slow in the NDG lab site system. So if you're using the same type of resource, just be patient. So now we type in user FTP with the password FTP. And once we're connected, at this point, we're instructed to go back to the Onion system and click to stop capture, which in this case is this button right here. And by doing so, we've now locked in the trace that took place. We then type in this filter space for the Wireshark an FTP filter name, and we press click, or we click apply. By doing so, we'll now filter down to just the things that are showing up. To this section, using Wireshark to look at FTP traffic is being used to enhance the concept that FTP is a plain text program, which means that when the traffic goes over the internet, or in terms of the LAN connections, the traffic is not encrypted. By way of knowing this is because it shows up in the Wireshark traces. You'll notice that it shows FTP as a password or a user, and then it shows the actual password that was used. So someone, if they were looking to hack this situation and knew you were using FTP, could just do some kind of Wireshark scan or maybe a TCP dump and be able to extract this information, but now have the login and the password of your connection to a particular server. All right, the next section we're going to deal with is using Wireshark to now capture sftp traffic, or secure FTP. And that way we can see the difference in how the traffic is handled, or it should be sent, as well as able to be seen or not seen relative to the secure portion. So we select capture on interfaces. We then select ETH0 this time and start. And we do a continue without saving because we had a previous trace and need to get rid of it. And so now we are going. Click on the clear button to clear the filter pane. So we don't need to do that. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we do, because of the FTP and the filter part. Okay, and then now we switch over to the Ubuntu system. Okay. We've done that. I've gone back over to the Ubuntu system as instructed, and I am told to now then do an exit from the FTP that was moving. And then what we will do now is we will type the command to validate that the SSH service is running, which is service, and then SSH being that service, and then the status command. And it turns out this SSH is indeed running because it is necessary for the SFTP to run. Now we will do a sudo for service. Sorry, don't need to do that because it's already running, obviously. So now we'll go to Kali, and if necessary, we'll click on the Kali icon, but that's already ready to go. And then we'll open a terminal. Okay, so I think that's this one. Yes. So now we've got a terminal, and then while we're on this terminal, we'll now initiate an SFTP for the following user name and IP address, which is 192.168.1.50. And we come up. This is probably going to take some time like before. Now, so this is a secure through SSH. Typically what happens is that you have to, no, we didn't have to do that. I guess because, that's interesting. Normally you would have had to answer a question that says, are you sure you want to continue connecting? Apparently we didn't have to do that in this case, so it wasn't necessary to come up with. So I'm going to type in the password instead, and now I'm connected. And then at that point I switch back to Security Onion, and what I will do is stop the capture, and I have done so. Good. We're back at the Wireshark display that we went to on Security Onion. And what we do is we're supposed to locate the Diffie-Hellman key exchange between the client and the SFTP service. Now, for the start of the trace of the Wireshark down into a fair portion of the tracing, eventually you'll look for what is called the Diffie-Hellman key exchange initialization. Now, the reason why that's important is because this is where client and server trade off their keys, which you will see here and here. After that, all other transactions that are taking place on the SSH level for this will now show encrypted data, and so therefore you cannot see any of the information about the logins nor any of the data that's being transmitted. So everything that you see from that point forward should now look encrypted and therefore not readable. And that concludes, at this point, how Wireshark can be used to look at an SFTP transaction, but only from the point of view of how the transaction takes place, not in terms of its contents. That's it for this lab.